Who broke One Punch Man?
In 2015, One Punch Man exploded onto the scene with a debut season that looked like it shouldn't even have been possible on a TV schedule. It hit so hard that even celebrities like Bill Burr were hyping it up. 10 years later, Season 3 shocked viewers for a very different reason.
That
Scenes
slideshow.
that barely moved, cuts that felt distractingly awkward, and an episode that bottomed out as the lowest rated anime entry in IMDb's entire catalog. The reaction to Season 3 spiraled out of control so fast that staff were publicly begging fans to stop sending them death threats. So,
bro, that is bullshit. It's not the staff's fault that the higher-ups are greedy and are pushing deadlines. At the end of the day, it's still entertainment and people don't deserve to die for it.
Does a series this successful fall apart that badly? Well, far from being the result of lazy animators, this points to a deeper, toxic issue that those within the industry and within One Punch Man's own production teams have been warning us about.
Bro,
for
it is
years.
so bad.
This
It's literally
is the story of how One
slideshows.
Punch Man Season 3 imploded.
Cool intro, though.
In order to understand the choices that transformed this into the anime disaster of the decade, I'm going to need to condense the very complicated subject of media adaptation into about 200 words. So, I don't know, hold on to something. The core misconception many people struggle with is that a faithful adaptation is automatically a good one. I mean, fidelity does matter, but it's not the deciding factor. The real test is whether the anime understands how the manga tells its story through rhythm, emphasis, and visual language. Extracting those unique qualities from the source and reconstructing them using the tools available to animation, because animation isn't really an upgrade so much as it's just a different medium with its own strengths and limitations. And those limits matter a lot more than most people realize. Most of you guys out there know One Punch Man through Yusuke Murata's stunning artwork. Dramatic, polished drawings with an uncanny ability to imply movement in static shots. But here's the part that's often overlooked. Murata's manga is itself an adaptation of a webcomic by an artist known simply as One. Now, due to One's crude art style...
Oh, I'm stupid. I thought the person who made the webcomic ended up being the one who also drew the manga.
He's often dismissed as a bad artist carried by Murata's technical mastery. But the truth is rarely ever so simple. There's a reason why so many of One Punch Man's most iconic shots originate in One's rough panels. Despite the rough drawings, One possesses a powerful instinct for shot composition, negative spacing, and the threading together of action sequences that perfectly balance coolness with absurdity long before Murata adds gloss to them. Therefore, when Murata first approached One as a fan of his webcomic, it was important for him to come with more than just his profound technical ability.
He basically knows how to do the perfect movie without the technical skills, the cameras, for example, or the VFX and SFX. But he knows the storyboard in his mind and he knows how everything needs to look like. It's just that he cannot operate anything himself. That's not bad. I guess it's like a designer who doesn't know how to create their own clothes.
Needed to demonstrate his understanding of what made One Punch Man work, and boy did he. By rooting his technical skill in the compositional language inherited from One, Murata gave rise to a new One Punch Man. Neither wholly One or Murata, but a synthesis of both. A version where pristine spectacle and deadpan absurdity coexist and elevate each other seamlessly. A stunning adaptation born through collaboration, which is fitting as collaboration was the central ingredient that gave rise to the single greatest anime adaptation I have ever seen. One
Being
Punch Man,
bald never looked so
Season
good.
1. How Season 1 handles this moment with the Deep Sea King tells us everything we need to know about the adaptation. When you look at One's original panel followed by Murata's redraw, the pathway to the anime becomes obvious.
I mean, as he said, the composition is the same. He just didn't know how to properly draw. He can still draw better than me. I wouldn't be able to even draw that part on the left side. Those are two different worlds when it comes to quality.
One establishes both the comedy and the drama through simple but enormously effective composition. The framing, the negative space, the timing of the beat all set the tone here. Murata builds on that foundation then by injecting motion into those drawings. He spaces the action animations out more deliberately, pushing the poses and creating a sense of impact that the webcomic can only imply.
It's like back-end and front-end development. He knew everything on the back-end side, but he didn't know how to make his website look beautiful.
The anime then takes both versions and heightens them. Saitama's bobblehead reaction is the most explicit addition, but the broader, more subtle choices actually matter more. By leveraging sound to shape the atmosphere, rain sits over the entire lead-up, giving the scene a heavy, almost oppressive mood. When the Deep Sea King finally strikes, the force of that punch creates a brief shockwave that clears the rain and leaves a pocket of silence around Saitama's stare. And that diegetic pause, it intensifies the moment in a way print cannot replicate. And that is a textbook example of what Season 1 does repeatedly, taking the ideas established by one, refined by Murata, and pushing them to stunning levels of spectacle without losing sight of the original vision. Large battles gained new layers of scale and momentum. Sequences that implied motion on the page turned into full displays of movement that felt distinct depending on who animated them. Some scenes were crisp and stylized, others more rough and energetic, and the variety helped introduce many viewers to the idea that animators leave personal fingerprints of their very own. That diversity came from a team built at the right moment. Madhouse's animation producer Yuichiro Fukushi had a reputation for attracting strong artists and creating an environment where they could thrive. Shingo Natsume, still early on in his career, had the ambition and clarity needed to guide a project of this very scale. The character designer Chikashi Kubota, along with artists like Yoshimichi Kameda and Norifumi Kugai, were on the verge of becoming major creative figures in their own rights. Their abilities, paired with a reliable support staff and well-chosen guest animators, allowed the show to reach a level of consistency that, even as I write this, felt almost unreal for a weekly production.
Why do they not replicate this then? I don't understand. If something works, never change a winning team. I mean, I know why. We all know the answer to this. It's to save money, right? And please shareholders. It's the same with games. Games do that as well. Game developers also have this short-sighted mindset where they're like, let's release the game now as fast as possible. We can fix the game later.
And unfortunately, it was too much to replicate. Capturing lightning with the very first season created a strange kind of curse. You see, once a series sets the gold standard for its medium, every follow-up is measured against it, and well, Season 2 just couldn't even attempt to replicate the conditions that made its first outing even possible.
But
the
why?
The truth is that the original team was gone, but that certainly wasn't by choice. You see, the unfortunate reality is that even if directors want to return, the animation production system often makes that very difficult to happen. When all this was going on back in 2019, Natsume actually said he would have liked to have handled One Punch Man again, so it's not like that door wasn't open. The issue was that reputable studios are normally booked years in advance. Production committees dictate sequel timing based on things like marketing windows, not just creator availability. If a sequel's not planned early enough, then you've locked yourself out of the timeline needed to reunite the original team. And at this point, Natsume had moved on to things.
They are basically split working on other projects because the second season wasn't booked fast enough. And that is stupid, because why wouldn't you just make an exception and prioritize that team? Game companies do that all the time, right?
Like Boogie Pop and Sonny Boy, and the original animation team were scattered all across the industry. And so, with Madhouse busy or unwilling to accept the production conditions of the sequel, JC staff stepped up and walked directly into the furnace with Season 2. There was no version of reality where it matched Season 1's scale or polish, yet it still managed to deliver an adaptation that was steady, thoughtful, and far better than its reputation might suggest. One of the more interesting sections of Season 2 adapts material that originated not from one, but from Murata's embellishments to the original manga. The wig shop encounter between Garo and Saitama is a good example of this. Murata's tendency to break actions into moment-to-moment panels gives his pages a natural sense of movement. They almost feel like animation roughs themselves, and while JC Staff Season 2 didn't have the resources to match that standard set by Madhouse, they didn't let that stop them from making smart choices. By leaning into the crudeness and absurdity of that moment, the anime found a comedic artistic style that both suited and elevated the scene, in my opinion. I mean, the conversation with the store clerk continues on in the background while Garo collapses out of frame, and the sound design supports that too as he fades out of consciousness. It's restrained, but it clearly understands the beat. And this is what a competent adaptation does. The new director was Chikara Sakurai, an animator with strong fundamentals but not the ability to reimagine set pieces in quite the same way Natsume did, especially not with such terrible production circumstances. However, within those boundaries, individual excellence still managed to emerge. Kenichiro Aoki became synonymous with the best animation on the show, drawing sequences for every single episode, and while it looks great with shading that evokes Murata's own work, he's very mindful of the number of drawings he uses. That economical approach is extremely mindful of the production as a whole, and as a result, allowed for crazy numbers of contributions without burdening all the various finishing departments. And he wasn't the only one who did this. Yuji Takagi and Yuki Suzuki also delivered reliable action cuts, helping the series find its own rhythm even when the production was stretched remarkably thin. Though, admittedly, it wasn't all good. There were absolutely outright creative missteps, like the heavy digital textures on characters and backgrounds, but largely the flaws of some fights feeling stiff or underdeveloped were simply signs of a team that had to prioritize finishing the show over reinventing it. Season 2.
The same happened, if I remember correctly, with Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. It was basically 40% of the animation was done. And they still published it, they still released it. And yet, the 40% still were, like, presentable. But we definitely got robbed out of better visuals. And same definitely happened with One Punch Man Season 3.
Followed the manga closely because it didn't have the time or resources to expand upon it. And yet, with time, and especially in contrast to what came later, many fans now look back and recognize how much this team actually managed to accomplish. It was an ordinary production elevated by the efforts of individual artists who understood the assignment. Season 1 had the freedom to chase ambition. Season 2 tried to hold the line with what it had. 6 years separated it from the next installment, but that gap did nothing to protect Season 3 from what came next. One thing that One Punch Man Season 3 makes painfully clear is how fast things can fall apart when the foundation isn't exactly protected. If the production pipeline isn't stable, even the best talent in the world can't stop the cracks from spreading. And that idea carries over pretty neatly into real life.
You cannot have speed and quality on the same side. It just doesn't work. So if you want speed, you will have to dial down quality. If you want quality, you gotta give your artists a little bit more time.
And your browsing habits, particularly when you're traveling. Because the moment you're on airport Wi-Fi, networks with basically no protection, you're in the very same situation. Everything looks fine on the surface, but it only takes one weak link for someone to slip into your emails, passwords, or even your bank details. That's why I've been using ExpressVPN. It wraps
that was a
all your
setup
traffic
for
in
an
encrypted
ad.
tunnel, giving your connection the kind of structural protection that Season 3's production wished it had.
Let me take a sip.
They actually use some of the best encryption around, so I'm not exaggerating when I say it would take billions of years to crack. Thankfully, it's all seamless too. They've got servers all around the world, including brand new ones in all 50 US states. You don't even have to think about it really. Just pick an option from the smart location list and you'll guarantee yourself the best latency and speeds on offer. It's just one click to connect and you're good to go. And it's also cheaper than ever thanks to their new tiered plans. Starting at just $3.49 a month, you're getting a great experience. That's just 12 cents a day, and even the basic plan gives you 10 simultaneous connections. So a laptop, phone, tablet, whatever you're using, it's all protected.
Where's the music coming from?
They've been our longtime partners, so you can get yourself 4 months extra using our own community.
Is that part of the video?
Scan the QR code on screen, click the link in the description, or go to expressvpn.com/notmark. That's 4 months extra just for you. Enjoy.
Season 3.
Six years. The production committee had 6 years between Season 2 and Season 3. 6 years to plan, to prepare, to learn from what went wrong. So naturally, the show began animation only
6 years? I feel like you could have given this project to a bunch of indie animators on YouTube, and they probably would have done a better job.
a few months into 2025. Yeah. Pre-production is extremely important. It's the stage where design, style guides, and structural decisions are refined, but at studios as big as JC Staff, long stretches of silence between projects rarely imply focused development. More often than not, it means staff are tied up with whatever show has the nearest broadcast deadline. Even when a project is in production, that doesn't mean most of the team's actively working on it.
That sucks. That entire system sucks because you want to have consistency in your artwork, right? Imagine if someone works on JoJo and then the next month they work on Dragon Ball and the following month they work on, I don't know, My Dress Up Darling or something like that. There needs to be artistic consistency in a series, right? In a show. Everything makes sense now, kind of.
There are actually a few ways to infer when a show's production truly kicks into gear, but one of the most reliable ways is to look at the people who make up the production desks. Unlike animators or directors, these roles aren't usually spread across multiple titles. The sheer complexity of the job requires them to be attached to a single series at any given time, and so their credit history forms a pretty clear timeline for us. In Season 3's case, the timeline is both revealing and incredibly depressing. Aoi Terayama, the production manager for Season 3, spent the end of 2024 finishing 2.5 Dimensional Seduction and The Do-Over Damsel Conquers the Dragon Emperor, and then moved directly onto Can a Boy-Girl Friendship Survive for Spring 2025. And yes, good God, what the hell are those names? But even Episode 1's production manager, Hajime Nagase, only transferred to JC Staff in 2024, and was immediately tied up in Magalumiere until that finished up at the end of that year. And that same story repeats all the way down. Every production manager and assistant for Season 3 was still attached to other shows all the way through to the end of 2024. Even with these production issues taken into account, that paints a pretty clear picture that One Punch Man's third season only entered its animation phase in the opening months of 2025. Combine that with a series director that appears to have replaced a previous one late in the game, and it's clear some kind of rework went on to even make this insane schedule feasible. And the word feasible is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, let me tell you. And of course, the consequences of this were immediately obvious to all viewers. One Punch Man Season 3 is stiff, and what it sacrificed in movement wasn't really made up for in polish either, simply because you can't refine drawings under those conditions. The shortcuts that they understandably had to take became so apparent and awkward that this was no longer a visual issue anymore. It was impacting many viewers' abilities to enjoy the quests of the same characters they once liked, in the same way that poor pros can sour you on ideas you enjoy. There's one key characteristic in One Punch Man Season 3's production mess that explains why so many viewers reacted strongly against it, even though TV animation is plagued with problems. The series' popularity and the magnitude of the issues are of course important, but there's one thing that this show doesn't share with all messy productions. It's conservative by design. Now, this doesn't mean that the team set off to create a bad show, but rather that they knew how bad the circumstances were from the beginning, so it's always being geared for survival against all odds. Series director Shinpei Nagai has received a deeply unfair amount of hate for doing the type of job that few want to even attempt. Trying to ensure that a show with high expectations is finished within extremely tight deadlines while still somewhat resembling the show that people feel so passionate about is an insane undertaking. Even when it comes to the outsourcing practices, the team has had to reach out to companies that specialize in quick delivery over everything else. Now, some of the greatest TV anime in recent years have made great use of subcontracting, giving specific episodes to capable and fitting teams.
I didn't even know they're outsourcing stuff. That is just a recipe for a disaster, and I feel like it would benefit the entire anime industry more if you just pick people who are actually passionate about the anime, let them work on the anime with how much time they need. If they need more, you delay that anime, and then you release it in a polished state. As a fan of anything, you want to see a progress, a positive progress. You don't want to see something regress, right? If the first season of an anime is the best season, quality-wise, something is definitely wrong with your entire industry.
To allow the main crew to pace themselves correctly. But within the context of crunch, One Punch Man Season 3 has had to opt for less reputable support companies built around the idea of delivering something fast. And this damage
This is what I meant.
approach has been apparent since the first episode.
Speed
of
doesn't
season
go
one,
along with
beginning
quality.
with the storyboarding itself. You see, when you adapt source material with visual components, it's perfectly common to build upon its imagery. And as we've seen, One Punch Man is no stranger to this. Given that the second season was already fairly close to the flow of the manga, and like I said at the beginning, even Murata's interpretation owes more to one's image composition than the latter gets credit for, what makes One Punch Man Season 3 stand out in this regard is the way that it can go for several minutes without introducing a single new shot or idea that wasn't already present in Murata's comics. Now, animation generally needs the addition of new cuts to feel natural for the viewer. This is because it's consumed as a continuous flow, rather than the separate panels that encourage you to imagine what's in between them when reading a comic. And yet, there's little to none of that in this season. Far from broadening the scope to match what people had imagined when they read the manga, what they've had to do is simplify everything so that it could be finished in time. If you're an avid fan, chances are that you've noticed how the eye-catching angles from the originals have...
It's like finishing it for the sake of finishing it. Okay, cool. Now you have a shitty product that nobody likes to look at. And not only that, you also damage the franchise, you damage the IP, and you also most likely damage the rewatchability. Why should someone now start with season 1 when they know that season 3 is an absolute shit show?
Being consistently nerfed so that they've been a bit easier to draw. And while this would be alright for a solid adaptation occasionally leaning into a manga panel, one that offers none but lesser versions of those original drawings comes across as far too bare bones. As its sole storyboarder so far, Nagai has conceived the entire season like this so that it's somehow feasible for the rest of the team despite the very negative circumstances. It's an approach that results in a show that is very recognizably One Punch Man, since it follows the original so closely, but that is so awkward in execution that anyone can pick up on its issues even if they aren't familiar with animation practices themselves. Again, this isn't a condemnation of the guy or the artist working on the show. This was a no-win scenario with the cards that they were given. They opted for long-term survival in a situation where higher ambition would have led to everything blowing up very early on into the broadcast. So if you want to look for culprits, you should look higher up. At the
Exactly.
companies calling the shots.
That's
in
my
the community.
point.
The final question many people are asking themselves is, how could this happen to One Punch Man? It's important to understand
Greed.
that for as troubled as the production was, it's by no means unique. Sure, we've talked about its conservative storyboarding as a distinctive trait, but the way those issues manifest doesn't change that tons of shows at this very moment are just as screwed, if not worse. If One Punch Man Season 2 was ordinary, then Season 3 has slipped down to the subpar zone, which means that it's about on the same level as at least a dozen other shows in any given season. If you only ever watch high-profile popular anime, you might not know just how common these issues are nowadays. We're in a period of polarization in the anime industry where the titles at the top aim higher and higher to match the expectations of people in social media, while many other titles sink deeper and deeper into the mud. Now, this isn't to say that the largest titles don't suffer production issues, they absolutely do. Some of them in recent years have been very public about those problems.
Sorry, there was a little mistake here. He wrote Dragon Ball GT. This is Dragon Ball Daima. Just wants to be the smart ass and do, actually, this is not Dragon Ball GT.
Issues, they absolutely do. Some of them in recent years have been very public about those problems, but what you can do with such projects though is essentially brute force your way through top of the line artists who can at least give off the appearance of high quality animation. But since there are only so many difference makers like that in the industry, it's not exactly a panic button many have access to. Another thing that you guys might be thinking right now is surely a show like One Punch Man is big enough of a deal to be granted that special status, right? Well, unfortunately, not even popularity can ensure that you will have the tools to create a high-profile anime the way you want to. Back in 2023, My Happy Marriage absolutely trounced the sales of every light novel and anime related.
900,000
that while
copies.
also spawning the biggest Japanese live-action film of the year, as well as successful adaptations into manga and the theater. And so, after receiving a solid season of anime as well, the production of its sequel was rushed so badly that it tanked the quality it once had, eventually having to stop the broadcast altogether, delaying the remaining episodes and putting out official apologies. I'm serious.
This is the problem. This is exactly what I meant. This is what happens if you tank the quality so hard, you are jeopardizing the entire franchise. Just look at Cyberpunk, for example. They rushed it out. They had to issue refunds because the game was literally unplayable on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And this is exactly what I meant. It left a bitter taste in the mouth of people who were looking forward to Cyberpunk. Even though Cyberpunk has fixed most of the issues, right? I think there's still people who never really got the news that Cyberpunk is now playable and a masterpiece that you probably should try out and never bought the game. And it's because of these rushed decisions.
Actually happened. One of the few series to surpass My Happy Marriage's popularity at its peak was Apothecary Diaries, which has continued to be a mega hit that is now awaiting an original film and a third season. And yet, after its very carefully made first season, that rush to release sequels within ruthless deadlines has also hurt the production a great deal. The series is created in collaboration between teams at 2 different studios, and yet both of them went on to create different shows during that tight gap between Apothecary Season 1 and 2. As a consequence, they had to lower their polished standards a lot for the second season of Apothecary Diaries, only managing to avoid cancelling the broadcast altogether due to contracting a low-profile yet very reliable studio to produce 1/3 of the episodes in the second season. Had they not pulled off that emergency trick, the issues could have easily reached the level of One Punch Man Season 3. Now, if you are a fan of One Punch Man, all of this isn't to say that you shouldn't feel upset. But what is worth understanding, though, is how widespread and pervasive issues like this really are, and where they really stem from. Hating on directors and animators who were set up for failure is punching down in a truly pointless way.
That's a no-go.
It's hard to make a difference as individuals, but if we have to project anger somewhere, it should be at the high-level producers pushing for narrow window releases and the unhealthy structure of the industry as a whole.
Exactly.
Next time you see real staff members begging fans to stop sending them death threats, remember, they're not the ones who broke One Punch Man. They were the only ones who tried to hold it together while the industry insisted on ripping it to shreds. Thanks for watching.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I totally agree with that take. Good things require time. That goes for love, relationships, everything that is good in your life and positive in your life requires time. Skill also requires time. So it makes no sense that in a field that requires both love, passion, and time and skill, that they have to work with low payment and lots of time constraints and deadlines.